Boys, we're going to be breaking down Thunderlord 2.0 today. This is a new exotic brought to us, but more importantly, it is the first machine gun brought to us here in D2. But considering that this is Thunderlord 2.0, I actually want to compare it to itself. So we'll be comparing some damage values to the original Thunderlord and talk about how this weapon is both doing in PvP and in PvE. Now, for those that are here trying to figure out how to get this gun, all of these quest steps are picked up from Amanda Holiday. They're very straightforward, very easy, and if you logged on today and you already are on the third step, she'll have an icon over herself right there in the tower. Simply go to her, she'll give you the third step, and you simply go back to the same lost sector that we were at last week, which is right there at Whispered Falls. This is the quest step that will bring us to the Cosmodrome. And yes, boys, nostalgia was everywhere. To all the new D2 players, this is where we grew up. But upon finishing this mission, you'll go back to Amanda one more time. She'll hand you an exotic Ingram. You'll take that, decrypt that with the Cryptarch, and you will now have Thunderlord. First up, let's go over these perks, boys. What's happening here? Intrinsically, we have Rain Havoc. Kills with this weapon generate lightning strikes from above. So that lightning strike, it's essentially like a souped up Firefly. I think it has a tad bit more AoE effect, but it doesn't require headshots. It doesn't require you to land that crit final shot in order to activate this intrinsic perk. You just simply have to land the kill. So very nice there. It also comes with armor piercing rounds, which is great for taking down multiple targets at a time. Lightning rounds, which is the same from D1. This weapon fires faster and more accurately the longer the trigger is held. Continuous damage generates lightning strike. That is really nice. But the only problem you're gonna run into with this trait is not having enough ammo. But if you're in certain situations and you got enough ammo, it's perfect. And of course, the final trait there is Feeding Frenzy. Kills with this weapon increase reload speed for a short time. Now, what's interesting is the exotic weapon ornament. Maybe there's some ornaments out there that have already been called something similar to this, but Talok's Wrath. Now, Talok, if some of you remember that one, that was a scout rifle from Destiny 1, a warlock exotic only, a very, very powerful exotic. And I know we were reviewing Thunderlord today. I just found it very interesting that this was the name of this weapon ornament. It's like Bungie's trying to put a bug in our ear. It's like they're whispering to us. What if Black Armory weapon comes out and it's Talok? Listen to me, fellas. Black Armory is supposed to be weapons that are like so overly powerful. Talok would fit that. I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about Thunderlord though. What's happening here? So in Crucible, we're hitting 41 per crit and 30 per body. This is actually significantly less than what we were hitting back in Destiny 1. Matter of fact, in D1, we were hitting 62 per crit and 50 per body. So yes, it was much more powerful, at least in Crucible in Destiny 1. I was hoping to see it return, maybe not as powerful, but to at least make the crit shot damage be around 50 to where we could consistently 4-tap Guardians. But the magazine itself is very large. It holds 62 in a mag, but when you pick up heavy in Crucible, you actually get 51 shots, which is pretty significant. But let me talk about my complaints with this gun. I think it's too weak, but not only is it too weak, it's really inconsistent. Damage fall off doesn't begin until 57 meters, but you do not want to be fighting anyone outside of 30 meters because it just is too inconsistent. There's too many guns that will shred you before you can shred them. And it also seems like the gun is trying to urge you to take advantage of its trait, lightning rounds, where it gains more accuracy the longer the trigger is held, but that's not what you're trying to do up in Crucible. Ideally in Crucible, we want to slay out with this weapon. So turning around, 4-tapping people, conserving our ammo. Ideally, that's what you would be doing with the machine gun. In terms of how this weapon does against supers, I honestly think that supers in general are way too hard to shut down, but Thunderlord was not an optimal choice for me when shutting down supers. There's definitely power weapons that can do that. Acreus, Tractor Cannon, Warcliffe Coil, even Sleeper, but Thunderlord just doesn't do enough damage to gun down that super before they can get to you. If you got a Nova Warp coming at you and he's blinking around, good luck with your Thunderlord. Another complaint I have about Thunderlord is how terribly it handles flinch. Now, flinch is a factor. It's something we've adjusted to. It's not something I'm a huge fan of, especially here on consoles. But notice how bad I flinch right here from a single Luna's house shot. That's not me moving my joystick. No, that is simply flinch. Now let's talk about PvE. In PvE, I thought it was doing really good, which is probably where the strength of this weapon is. It does a lot of damage. It has that AoE effect on it now. It's chaining damage. And on top of that, when you're burning damage into a single target, you're landing lightning strikes upon the enemy as well. Now let's check Greg out. So I'm landing a bunch of shots on Greg. As you see here, there's that 1068 that keeps popping up. Now I'm assuming that is from the lightning strike itself. That lightning coming down, and it seems to hit a multitude of times. I don't know how many times it hits, but it's tacking on damage double what my crit shot damage is right here. So pretty significant. So overall, guys, I think Thunderlord is a good weapon for shredding ads, for getting multi-kills, and possibly, under the right circumstances, could be a pretty decent DPS weapon. The biggest flaw to this gun is finding enough ammo. Now, in the raid, this wouldn't be a problem at all, but for Gambit, I was having a terrible time getting enough ammo for this weapon. Obviously, from the trait, the weapon wants you to burn large amounts of ammo into your enemies. The problem is just getting enough ammo to do that, to take advantage of those extra lightning strikes that are doing that extra AoE damage. So overall, guys, I do like Thunderlord for PvE. It's got a lot of tough competition, but I honestly think it can compete, being that it holds kind of a middle ground in terms of being good for clearing ads and simultaneously being pretty decent at doing DPS to bosses. For Crucible, it's a tough sell, being the fact it doesn't even hit 50 per crit, it's inconsistent in the mid-range, and it handles flinch poorly. I'm gonna have kind of a hard time convincing people to use this over our other exotic power weapons in Crucible. Now, I will be exploring some builds, some things that could potentially make Thunderlord even better. I'm gonna mess around with its intrinsic perk as well as its trait and see if it pairs well with any subclasses, or maybe even certain exotics, and see if we can possibly boost Thunderlord's potential in both PvP and in PvE. So fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.